Hi, and welcome to an episode of the Jet Rails podcast. I'm Robert, your host. And today we're going to be talking about increasing your traffic to your e-commerce website, about how to drive traffic from some major places like Google and Instagram, how to really drive more sales through that process, not just bringing people, but bringing shoppers that will turn into customers. And with no further ado, I'm joined today by Tony with the Sales and Orders team. Tony, would you do the honor of introducing yourself?
Sure, of course, Robert. How you doing? Hey, everybody. Tony Capetola. I'm the VP of Marketing and Partnerships over here at Sales and Orders, and we are an end-to-end e-commerce marketing solution. We help e-commerce merchants, really of any size or shape, effectively list, market, and advertise their products on the digital shelf space. And Robert, as you said, it's on channels like Google, Microsoft Ads, Instagram, Facebook, Snapchat, and Pinterest, right? And we're kind of a mix between a MarTech solution where we have our platform that's fully integrated with like platforms like BigCommerce and Shopify and Magento, and then we can support merchants really across any platform, really. And then we have this incredible team of dedicated specialists, and we're helping merchants grow. We just this year we're now supporting over 13,000 merchants on our platform.
Over 13,000. You know them all personally by name, though. That's the important part.
Well, some of them do have my cell phone number, so they do. I am on speed dial. So if they
we're
can't
going
get
to
a
be
hold
putting
of,
that on the video. It's going to be in a running banner in this section of the episode.
please call me, text me. Just not late to dinner. That's all I ask.
If anyone that's watching or listening hasn't figured out yet that we're friends, or if not, I'm going to get a surprise knock on my door later. It might be a 12-hour drive or 20-hour drive. But we're not going to tell everyone exactly how far apart we are.
I'm not jumping on a plane, but I might hop in a car to come take a visit there.
Yeah. It's been a while since we really got to catch up.
Yes,
but
yes. You were on my show first, actually.
I was, which was a pleasure. We had a lot of fun. For anyone that hasn't caught it, I'll share a link in the notes for this one. It was pretty awesome. So, if a merchant hasn't had a big history of selling through some of these digital marketing channels, from your perspective, where are some of the best places to start? You mentioned a lot of different channels, a lot of different platforms that you can advertise through. Where would you normally recommend that people begin the journey?
Sure, of course. So, I mean, look, everybody, regardless of what channel you're going to select, or if, depending on if you're deciding between whether it's search commerce, like for search engines like Google or Microsoft, or social commerce or S-commerce like Facebook, Instagram, even Snapchat and Pinterest, right? Every merchant needs to start out with one thing, and that's a product feed. Sometimes it's a feed, or sometimes it's often called a catalog as well. But it's essentially just a way of collecting your product data and sending it out to these channels, and that is very much the lifeblood of advertising campaigns and driving traffic through these different channels. And when you think about listing on these channels, you have to think about what these channels, like the purpose of the channel, right? Search engines like Google, these are very intent-driven channels, right? It's based on keywords. Shoppers are searching very specific criteria, right? They might be saying, hey, I'm looking for a gray collared shirt, men's, size large, right? And if they're putting that into the search field, channels like Google and Microsoft Bing, they're matching that query to different ads that obviously merchants are pushing out there. So, you're targeting a different type of audience. Whereas on social, it's typically more contextual, right? It's based on demographics, and often there's a lot of machine learning in the background here. It could be things like gender or age groups, or even looking at like topics or interest, right? So it's very different type of targeting. I think most merchants these days, some of the easier platforms to really get started out with are most definitely, Google Shopping and Microsoft Bing, which operate very similarly, right? They have shopping campaigns, which are targeted product ads that show up on the search engines. They go right to your site and they can check out on those sites. And then there's, I think from there, most merchants want to segue into like Facebook and Instagram. And even with iOS 14 and 14.5, the performance hasn't really adjusted much, right? We still see merchants, for example, in the auto parts industry that are just crushing it. They're doing it over 10, 20 times return on Facebook advertising, right? And then I think slowly but surely you start to segue into some of the nuanced commerce channels like Snapchat and Pinterest and exploring other opportunities, maybe even getting into TikTok, which is, starting to grow. And really, Robert, it kind of also based on industry, right? If you're selling a lot of brand name goods or products that are, are recognizable or are very common, commonly found, when you're searching online, search channels like Google and Microsoft are just that's where you're going to want to go to, right? If you sell things like custom goods or obscure items or a lot of apparel and accessories, even fragrances, right? These do incredibly well on social. Beauty products do unbelievably well on social channels like Facebook and Instagram, where you can do things like dynamic product ads. And then you also have shops. So there's native checkout solutions on these channels as well.
Interesting. And it brings to mind there's a lot of categories to break down in regards to, figuring out where your audience is and at what point they're going to be moved by something. It doesn't mean that someone that's on LinkedIn doesn't want to smell better and get good fragrance, but that it might not really be the right time and place to get in front of them. Are there a lot of product categories that you find that people try to launch campaigns, but they're verboten? They're not allowed to run ads or campaigns.
Oh yeah, of course.
There's do you run into a lot of frustration around that?
So, I mean, there are restricted categories, right? There's just a blanket, we're talking things like firearms, high risk products such as, CBD or cannabis products, for example. These are just generally restricted by most, if not all, ad platforms. It can be also tough depending on how you're structuring your product data. If you're in the vitamin and supplements industry, and these can be a lot harder to get approved by these channels, just because when you go through and they're diagnosing product data and they're looking at things like your product description, there are certain like chemicals or ingredients that are included in different products. They send off warning signals right on these channels, right? But then if you're smart about optimizing and cleaning your data, you can get through past a lot of these checkpoints and you can still list on this, right? But there's just a number of different categories that it's a lot more difficult for these merchants to advertise, right? But there are other opportunities for them to leverage, such as affiliate marketing, right? And getting outside and thinking about content marketing and influencer marketing as opposed to just focusing on like PPC or SMM, right?
Makes sense. And, I've seen others that have come up in the last couple of years. There are a lot of networks that didn't want folks selling, I don't know, masks, face shields, whatever the latest was. And maybe that was partly because they didn't want to be responsible for quality control issues. And maybe it's also because they just didn't want to be blanketing their users with things that had to do with topics that they didn't want to be thinking about. And they wanted to be more of that safe space in terms of content to alleviate what was happening in the real world.
Too much, right? But you're absolutely right. That came up throughout COVID, right? There were a number of different restrictions that actually put on things like, again, masks and PPE, right? PPE, yes, but PPE, right? I'm like making sure I have that acronym right. But yeah, there were restrictions put on that because, again, like you said, I think it was also like a regulatory issue at the same time, but also because it was tough because in the industry there was a lot of undercutting, there was a lot of price gouging, right? And these channels are very, very protective of not just the merchants, but they're also incredibly protective of the customers, right? It's all about putting the search community at first, right? They're putting consumers first, and they want to, and things like, again, like the California Consumer Protection Act, like all these different regulations are starting to come in, and they're adding new layers of security that these different channels want to pass forward to the consumer. So that was rampant amongst 2020, but that's actually been relaxed now. A lot of that is not an issue anymore.
Interesting how these things keep evolving, And look, consumers aren't shy about calling out the platforms when they don't like what they see. In reality, consumers are the product for these platforms, right? So if people don't want to, see ads, if they're going to use ad blockers, if they're going to stay off of a platform, whatever it is, the platform doesn't win. So it's in their best interests to to keep users happy. And so, stage one, you mentioned, get the feed up,
Yep.
get the product data somewhere where you can advertise it, and figure out, in this case, where the best audience is that's going to potentially convert, that you're going to get the right people at the right time in the right network that's at the right fit. Not too difficult from a high level, but takes a little bit of brain power, and sometimes, I imagine, some testing.
Oh yeah,
you know,
absolutely.
you don't always know what the major winner is going to be. You make assumptions, you have a hypothesis, but reality can be different. And also because these platforms, I suppose, have different bidding strategies and things, different competition. So even though one might seem like a better fit, you might get a much better ROAS, a much better return on ad spend on another. So it starts with getting the feed over, but then what goes into actually optimizing? So let's say you're going to get your product data over to to Google systems or Facebook systems, into Google Merchant Center, or what's next?
Sure, of course. So, I mean, let's take Google Merchant Center for example, right? Because I mean, when you look at it, um, let me paint you a picture here, right? So let's say we have a BigCommerce merchant, right, or a Magento merchant, right? Let's say they interact with an app like ours. We're connecting directly through API to their products, and we're ingesting those products and we're pushing them out to these networks and these channels, right? So if we're sending out products, so let's say Google Merchant Center, there's first of all a time delay. There's at least 3 to 5 business days where Google's got to review your product data and approve it. But once you reach an approved state, you can begin leveraging things, and this is new for Google, but free product listings. So if you just enable this program within Merchant Center, you can list your products on Google Search and Shopping, entirely free. There's no cost per click or anything associated with this. Google, the pandemic accelerated Google's plans to do this, and they brought this, probably about 2 to 3 years, I'd say, sooner than they would have. You can also run shopping ads on Google. So these are campaigns that you would build within Google Ads, and they're product based. So they're based on your actual products in your product catalog. And this is if you're searching on Google and you search for, let's say, men's gray collared shirt. All those little image ads that appear at the top, those are Google Shopping ads, and
Well,
those are your bread and butter.
yeah, they're typically going to convert better because the shopper can see the picture of the item, the price, who they're going to be potentially buying it from, and if none of that stuff is a match, they can see some kind of review data about the merchant themselves, that sort of thing. That if this isn't something that they're interested in, they're not going to click. It's not going to cost you any money. So there's intent already to purchase that's a lot stronger
Yes,
than a text ad, or or maybe
absolutely.
some other kind of ad.
Yes, but even then, text ads are kind of like they're another layer that you can add to this, right? And it's but that's a whole other set of criteria and way of building, way of optimizing. I mean, the core of getting onto these channels and making sure that your products are searchable or findable, but optimizing your product data for for really like stages. Get your product data out there. Review the diagnostics or the information that's Google, that a channel like Google is saying. Even if your products are approved, you want to start looking at how can I improve my product titles? How can I improve my product descriptions? Product type. Big secret out here, guys. Key it on this one. Product type. It's an attribute that's common in that you'll see on Google, you'll see in all these channels, right? But it's the one extra outside of your titles and descriptions that is probably like third as far as importance goes. And it's really just a category for your product. And if you're optimizing this data and then you're creating campaigns and then you're optimizing the campaigns based on profitability, right? You're focusing on your top drivers, and then sometimes there can be this 80-20 rule, right? That 80% of your, 20% of your products drive 80% of your revenue, right? But it's all about data driven insights here, focusing on what products are driving the most revenue and what products are driving the most profitability at the end, and then doing things such as increasing your bids, restructuring, adding new campaigns, maybe creating like a top performers campaign and only focusing on the core set of products, or putting priority on those products to drive more revenue or top line revenue. And then you can begin to supplement in additional opportunities, such as remarketing. You could even, and as you're branching out to other channels, right, you include social commerce like Facebook and Instagram. You do dynamic product ads. The nice thing about that, it's all machine learning based. There's not so much human interaction, but there's a ton of opportunity to reach shoppers when they're contextually driven, right? They're focused on their social network, or they're catching them at micro moments where, and as you said, all these different, times and places and behaviors, right? We kind of like have become accustomed to calling these micro moments. And if you can begin to reach consumers in all these micro moments, you stand a greater opportunity of obviously drawing them in. And as long as you have a great site, and this is the very end, tail end, you can drive all the traffic you want, Rob, but if your site's not optimized, your checkout's not optimized, if you're not focused incredibly on CRO or conversion rate optimization, all that ad spend and all that optimization on your ad side of things, driving traffic, will be all for naught.
Yeah, I mean, we get a lot of people coming over to us at Jet Rails looking for speed optimization, and right now with Core Web Vitals and all that,
Yeah, sure,
big
sure.
topic. And look, you can drive, you can run a really great marketing campaign, but if your site doesn't perform, or it can't handle the traffic, if you don't have the scalability, things like that, that everything breaks down. We know that hosting is one area. We know
Hosting,
that
yep.
the design itself and how mobile friendly and and cohesive it is, and what kind of trust you can build with the shopper quickly on the site is also going to equally, without good designers, developers, that as I always say in e-commerce, it takes a village.
Yep,
There's a lot of things
absolutely.
that have to come together, as well as you have to have the right pricing and things. People on the internet, they're going to price shop pretty quickly. So if you,
Absolutely. And
you know,
you look at Google, and that's a comparison shopping engine, right?
yeah,
There's a lot of, obviously the one to one of clicking on an ad and going to the store and making a purchase, right? But there's a ton of comparison shopping in that too, right? You're if your price points are wrong, right? If you don't offer things like free shipping, and or if you're not charging right? There's just these certain things that universally speaking, for e-commerce merchants, are ultimate drivers from the consumer's eyes, right? If you don't have fast and free shipping, if you're not priced competitively, or if you
mhm.
don't offer something like some kind of customer loyalty, or way of connecting with the consumer at like an emotional level once they reach your site, again, there's only so much that your advertising is actually going to do for you.
Yeah, I was talking with a merchant recently who was having some issues with getting the right return on their ad spend, and they're running ads in Google and Facebook and a number of places, and they've got their email campaigns and all sorts of things queued up. And I took a look at the site, and I said, okay, the pricing on these products. It was map pricing. The manufacturer had set the pricing,
Sure.
so they couldn't discount it any further. So I said, great, you're driving the traffic, but people are finding it for the same price everywhere else. you know, Aside from looking at what you can do to improve your marketing, get a loyalty program, give them some reward points. So
Yeah.
hey, they'll get points with you and not someone else. That's a win.
Yeah. What are
Go
you
ahead,
doing differently?
yeah,
Like,
give them
what
a
are
freebie
right?
product with it.
Yep.
So that they get, I don't know, free hat with it or something, keychain,
Exactly.
anything, so they feel like they got to win. Offer 3% of the gross, or 10% of the net, or whatever it is going to go to a charity that aligns with what you're doing, that's going to tug at the heartstrings a little bit, which is good for the world and
Yes.
in general. So I
And there are some great tools out there right now. That's, conversion rate
yeah.
optimization outside of, again, sales and orders. We're top of funnel, right? We're the drivers. We're trying to get as much traffic at a profitable rate to your store. And there are just all these other great sources. Obviously, having incredible hosting, through a source like JetRails is crucial, right? Site speed, as you said, Core Web Vitals. And you brought up charity. I mean, there's these awesome platforms and tools out there that just make that seamless. And you can even hand select what charities you want to donate to, or give your merchants the opportunity to select which charities you want to open up to.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, the consumers. I'm not the merchants.
Yeah. No, and I think it's interesting, that so much of this is data driven in what you're doing. I imagine that when new clients come on the platform, that a lot of them get their data kicked back. I've seen any number of reasons that platforms like Google Merchant Center will not approve product data. The list goes on and on. It might be that they're missing product photos for items, or that the photos are low quality. It
Missing
might be that they're
photos.
missing attributes. I mean, you want to sell a shirt, but you don't have the right attribute that says whether it's for men or women or unisex or whatever. Google doesn't know how to advertise it. They don't know when to show it and when not to. They're not going to show it. Uh,
Yep. And they've
there's
actually relaxed these restrictions so much. So over time, they used to be, they were a lot more stringent, right? There were required attributes, But even things like your GTINs, the UPCs and EANs and JANs or ISBN codes, those specific for books, but gender, age group, size, like you mentioned, color, a lot of the attributes are no longer required. They may be required for certain even for apparel and accessories, right? They are still very much, but then they're optional for other categories. So while they've been very stringent for a number of years, it's as of COVID and the pandemic, they've started to relax
Hmm.
more and more. They're even relaxing on the things that, a lot of times with Google Merchant Center, if you're doing something that's blatantly wrong or not a policy violation, right? You can have your entire Merchant Center account suspended. And you have to go through this very extensive process of getting your Merchant Center reapproved. But um, they're even beginning to relax those as well, like requiring things as like your additional contact information from your store listed on your site. You used to have all the types of payments that you would accept on the store. Those are starting to just become less and
Yeah, I
less of
know
an
that they
issue
were
for them.
requiring privacy policies, return policies, all sorts of things that, yeah, you would get shut down if you didn't meet the base requirements
Yes.
because they didn't want to be a part of advertising for someone that wasn't going to be transparent about, what was going to happen once the user had started to enter information or make a purchase or anything else.
It's still about protecting the consumer, right? As much as they want to protect the merchant, right, and they want to give the merchant, quality of life for advertising on these platforms or listing these products on these platforms, the channels themselves are still hyper sensitive to the safety and security of the consumer. And
Mhm.
there's more of this coming out, right? Arkansas just released. Well, I guess it's the end of this month will be the a new marketplace Inform Act, right? And now marketplaces like Buy on Google for Google Shopping's native checkout, even Amazon, right? They're going to be requiring merchants to provide more information, so that they can begin to pass that to the consumer, right? And now it's a new act that they have to follow. It is an Arkansas state act, but you're starting. We just saw this, Google sending out emails to merchants, informing them that policies are changing for Buy on Google, right? And now that when Buy on Google merchants log into Merchant Center, they have to go in and start providing more information to be provided to the consumer. So, and we've seen this happening like CCPA. You saw this in the EU with GDPR. Um, and I think these regulations are just going to continue. I think statewide regulations are going to continue.
Yeah. As much
Massachusetts
as,
released a digital sales tax. I mean,
yeah, I mean, personally, I like a lot of regulation being local, but I think that this is going to get harder and harder for the merchants. And at some point, we're going to have to figure out more blanket rules and regs that we can all live by across
yep,
the internet versus trying to make, because internet sellers by nature, they want to sell to all these places
yes,
and trying
yes,
to live by, yeah, that whether it's the data privacy, whether it's the marketplace taxation rules, whether it's there's so many rules that are just coming out of the uh, the different states and countries
yeah.
and what have you. It's going to get burdensome over time if not already. Uh, so you know. Th- I, I'm going to look at this a little bit differently. There are lots of folks that are successful in running these campaigns and that they keep chugging along and they're really happy they're getting good return on ad spend. Tell me a little bit about the folks that don't have that kind of success. They sign up, they get a feed set up. Let's assume that they meet the base requirements of the feed. They do some basic things. We've already touched on a couple of things like, hey, look, if their prices aren't good, these are internet shoppers. It takes them a few seconds to price shop. That's probably going to be painful if they can't at least be semi-competitive in that, in both the product pricing and the shipping pricing and
Sure, of
such.
course.
But what are some other reasons that you see that merchants commonly have challenges in running these kinds of campaigns, running ads in all these different networks?
I'll tell you, the number one challenge is conversion tracking, right? I'm not even sure why. I'm amiss to not have said this previously, right? But if you're not setting up conversion tracking on your site, you'll never know if you're performing or not. Or even more so, if the conversion tracking is not right, you're not installing your Google Analytics codes, your Bing UET codes, your Facebook pixels, even your Snap pixels, right? If these aren't implemented correctly, then the data might be wrong. You might not be able to collect transactional information based on the consumer behavior on your site. Um, that bar none probably top of mind, right? Almost every time a merchant comes in and works with us, right, we have to either help them set it up or even fix previous implementation that wasn't working right.
Wow.
That
I,
is common amongst all merchants, I'd say.
I wonder, has GA4 Google Analytics 4 thrown any any issues into the
Uh,
mix, or it's just the
A
same
little
old?
bit, a little bit. Me personally, just as a marketer, I'm married to traditional UA analytics. Like I love universal analytics. I haven't really gotten into use
Well, if you're
A4 as
not
much.
tracking with external apps, that you're also trying to track traffic across, or Internet of Things kind of, headless things,
Yes,
other, because that's the beauty of Google Analytics 4 is that you can track across these different kinds of platforms. But if you're really trying to track, a main website,
yes,
yeah, that the traditional, it's going to do its job, the universal analytics. I think I'm going to throw a PSA in here for our listeners. GTM, not GMT, not Greenwich Mean Time,
GTM
Google Tag Manager.
manager. Yep.
You add this one code to your site, and then you don't need your developers to keep heading in there because
Yes.
now you log into Google Tag Manager and you add the new tags. So you
Yes.
spin up a new Snapchat campaign, you need some new tracking code. You don't need your devs to go and make a change to your production, your live
Correct.
website. You just need to log into Google Tag Manager and add the new tag in there, and it automatically is going to be embedded in the site.
Yep.
So you can make your life a little bit easier. If I know that for a lot of folks that's been a challenge for marketers, is that they're often waiting on a developer to be able to
Yes.
get the tag in the correct place, working right, all that. It's nice to try to pull that back a little bit closer to the marketers, to those that are comfortable with it. And I found that that's been a big help in the last few years at getting more folks to be able to better implement tracking faster and easier, not to be stuck on that, not to be running campaigns blind, not knowing which ads, which keywords, which platforms, which times a day, which users, all that juicy data on which ads are converting.
Yeah, of
Because
course.
the only way to make these campaigns work well is to identify what's working and get rid of the rest.
Absolutely. I mean, like, you got to think about it. Like, most e-commerce stores have five, six, some words up to 7 or 8 tags, that are just the natural ones that even non-e-commerce businesses will have. And GTM, Tag Manager, just is like a container, right? It's just a way to add all those into a single line of script, and the script actually pushes those out. What I also would recommend is, if you're ever wondering if there's something wrong, right, or you want to make sure that your tags are firing correctly, right, things like Tag Assistant, Chrome extensions, right, Tag Assistant, Pixel Helper, these tools. If you scroll up to the corner of your Chrome tab here, and you want to make sure that your site's firing correctly, queue that up, run the enable, the record, or just to check, refresh your browser, and it'll tell you things like Google Analytics is firing correctly. You have more than one Google Analytics tracking code on your site. Why is that, right? And maybe there might be a good reason, but a lot of times what happens if you have too many codes, or you have the codes overlapping each other, they fight with each other. Um, I've actually seen pretty common where, and this is, I think, happens because Facebook Business Manager is a complex tool, but once you really get down into it, it's relatively simple. Um, but many times where merchants are setting up Facebook campaigns and they have 2, 3, 4 pixels on their site, and especially now that Facebook's there's a lot of changes going on with that. You got to make sure that you're cleaning that up, right? You want 1 pixel. You want to set up at max 8 conversion events now, and they're all tied to 1 pixel though. But you want to make sure that you're tying it to a specific event. And like as you said, in Google Analytics, is another way of doing this is setting up conversion goals and setting the criteria for what happens. Right, a consumer reaches this point in the journey, right? They've reached checkout, and we know that we're firing a goal or a transaction off of a particular time that they hit a page, right? And then Google Analytics obviously passing about transactional data beyond that, like sales and revenue earned. Um, so these tools will help you understand if there's something broken or just something amiss.
Absolutely. And yeah, I did notice some time ago that your team had also been doing a little bit of work in the affiliate space. And I know that you mentioned earlier in the episode affiliate, is especially for those that can't run, in some of these ad networks. How has that space been evolving? I know that even when it comes to things like influencers, which are often tied in with
Hmm.
affiliate, because that's how you, in many cases, you track the success of an influencer campaign. It's with affiliate links and other
Yeah.
things,
Yep.
and affiliate coupon codes and such. How you know I know influencers kind of, reached a bit of a peak and then people, consumers started to fire back a little bit against that trend about, why are people buying this just because so and so got paid to say it was good and they isn't even using the product themselves. And um, how is affiliate doing at this point? How important is it to the overall landscape? Because I know, I mean, affiliate's not for everyone, because in order to be good at affiliate, you really have to be able to offer something that enough people want with
Hmm.
enough margin to be interesting to the affiliates for it to be worth their time for them to be advertising it. So, when you get too niche or too small margin or something else that often it just doesn't align. But what's your current 30,000 foot view of the affiliate space?
Look, I mean, I think it's a space that is ripe for disruption, right? It's a 20, 30 year old industry that there's a lot of great players out there. There's tools like a Winch and Share Sales. There's obviously we have our affiliate marketing tool set within our platform. Um, but it can be, and I've shown that we've proven this, right? It can be an incredibly lucrative opportunity. I think you need to have a couple things in place, right? First of all, like you said, you need to have a good understanding of your product base, right? You need to know what products are high margin enough to be able to not only expense out for your existing marketing opportunities, but also the commission or like typically a rev share that you're giving out to influencers or your affiliate partners, right? You also want to be able to build your own publisher network. So you need to have the right tools in place to do all that, right? It's not necessarily about the type of product or even the influencers that you're partnering with, or the channels or the affiliate networks that you're partnering with. It's really about having the right tool set, proper tracking, being able to measure and gauge transactional activity, and then also just having a way to simplify the process of paying your affiliate partners, right? Being able to have like this native commission payout system, right? And we've kind of been working towards solving a lot of these nuanced problems that merchants are still facing these days. Um, I do believe that it's an incredibly lucrative opportunity. Like I said, I think again you need to have the right partner to do it with, and then you need to find the right affiliate marketing opportunities. Right? For example, on our end, we do a lot of comparison shopping. Right? We work with the comparison shopping service out for Google in the EU. We're one of the very few comparison shopping partners for Microsoft advertising, and we're kind of changing the way that we think about affiliate marketing if it's just based on influencers or publishers. We're actually creating the publisher opportunity on our end for our merchants, and just as of this year, we're driving. I think to date we've driven over $1.8 million in sales just from affiliate marketing alone. And we've only just gotten started in this space, and it's a huge opportunity. Millions of products listed through our network right now. And I think there's going to be more opportunities as time goes on to leverage affiliate marketing. I think it's great for the beauty space. It's great for the fragrances space. It's actually another auto parts really strong category for affiliate marketing. And again, I think if you have the right tools and you have the right partners, and if you put somebody in place on your team to build the affiliate program, like attract publishers, um, give them the right marketing material and the right assets to actually connect with consumers in their network, and you find all these unique opportunities to partner with them. It's like almost like icing on the cake, right? There's just that extra bit of revenue that you don't have a lot of overhead on, right? There are a lot of net opportunities where it's just your product feed or it's just your products, and you're not giving out advertising spend or special discounts or anything along those lines, but you're just paying the commission to your publisher partners, and ultimately I think you can capitalize on that and make a good chunk of money off of it.
Mhm. Well, and so if you're in a good category for it, if you've got the right margins and other things, I suppose that, and for traditional at least affiliate marketing online, I found that there were a few cost centers. So you had the commissions or whatever
Yep.
whatever it was that you were going to be paying as some kind of referral fee bonus, whatever it was, some kind of bounty to the affiliate that was driving you the traffic that
Of
generated
course.
that lead or that sale. So that was one cost center. The next was the platform, because people didn't run their own. They would go through Share a Sale or Commission Junction or some major, Rakuten. So there was somebody in between. And so they were getting some kind of fees or override on top of everything. So that was the second cost center.
Yep.
And the third cost center was going to be, which you described a little bit as well. Somebody's got to manage this whole thing. So
Oh, yeah.
someone has to be out there creating the calls to action that are going to interest these publishers, and in some cases, giving them the banners, the ad text, the different things that they can use in their marketing and their newsletters or social media or other places. So you've got to give them creatives and things. So now you've got someone either on your side or a consultant or agency or someone that's helping with that, and that's a third cost center. And so where people start thinking about affiliate is, oh, it's just like I'm just paying for performance, that either there's a sale and I pay or there isn't.
That's
Well,
right.
there are a few extra cost centers involved to really make it work, because just listing yourself in an affiliate network itself, which also has fees, of course, but it's not enough to just automatically have publishers and folks and influencers come knocking on your door in droves lined up around the block saying, yeah, well, we want
That's
to
right.
promote this. You've still got to attract them through the network. You've got to engage in outreach. It's an interesting beast.
It is. It is. And I couldn't agree more. I think and this goes not just for affiliate marketing, right? I think merchants, really any business owners these days, they often, especially small business owners, I even see this in the restaurant industry a lot, right? That although they're great business people, they often don't look far ahead enough to think about those additional cost centers that they wouldn't have even thought about initially, right? And that you speak with a business owner, for example, an e-commerce merchant, and you start to describe these things, and they finally start to realize it, right? It's like the light bulbs start going off. I'm like, oh, okay. Oh, all right. I did need to do more. There was going to be more of a cost, and of course there is. But
Yeah.
if
And
right,
they needed to be ready to engage in this for 6 months, for a year, to
exactly,
really test it out and build up properly. And if not, it's probably not a great investment of time and resource. I find that for most campaigns here, we talked about, without tracking, these ads, aren't going to be particularly performant. When we, talk about the ad networks, you can't run ads for a week and determine failure or
correct,
success. That's going to give you some initial data of things that obviously you want to, adjust, cut out, et cetera. But it should also be leading you toward things that were a little bit more promising. And again, a week is not really much data. I like to look
fair
at,
enough.
a few
30
months of,
days at least.
yeah,
30
you
days
know.
at least.
So, and again, that's just to start optimizing. That's not
Yes,
to reach, now, some people get lucky and it's profitable right off the bat. But I find if you don't come at it with a few months of ad spend and budget and plan to work at it, that is probably not the right kind of marketing for you. The same way that if you don't come at SEO with a long-term plan,
right.
really,
Not
what are
at
you
all.
doing with it?
It's data, test, data, test, and it's a vicious cycle. It just goes on and on and on. In the end, I will always land on the same exact thing, and it's the best piece of advice I could possibly give to any merchant or any business owner that's going to run any kind of advertising or marketing. Right? It's all about data-driven insights. Right? Do not do anything. Do not make a change. And don't have that that excited, like, oh my god, we just had a fantastic 2-day stretch with our ad campaigns. Don't touch it. Leave it alone. And then give it a little while, return back to the data and use the numbers to tell you the story, right? The story is there. If you and you know what, granted, not everybody's great at reading data, not everybody's great at analytics. But if you can focus on that and learn it and invest enough of your time into it, you're going to find the answers. You're going to find the truth is in the
Mhm.
data.
Yeah, it's numbers. It's not.
Just a numbers game. Just a numbers game.
That's all. When it comes to that kind of data, and I do want to ask, because part of what you've described of how your company works, you provide tool sets that help users to submit data and optimize and do things. How often are you working directly with merchants, and how often are you working with partner agencies and others that are leveraging your tools and working with their clients, providing those resources? Because I know that not everyone has this expertise in house. So,
Yeah,
not
sure, of
everyone's
course.
comfortable or confident or has the time realistically to invest into doing this stuff right. Do you find that a good chunk of your clientele work with some kind of third party that leverages your tools?
I'd say more so that we work with more merchants one on one for sure, right? I mean, we are a technology first company, right? We're also a people first company. Ultimately, we're able to do things and we're able to offer a far more cost efficient and cost effective support network for our merchants because we are technology first. But that isn't to say that we don't pass that along, right? We have plenty of partner agencies and partner marketers that utilize our platform to help their merchants grow. Um, but again, we not only offer this technology and SaaS platform for merchants to do it them on their own and self managed, and all the guidance support 100% free, no strings attached to help them in their journey. But we have this unbelievable team of specialists that are heavily dedicated to driving business forward. And it's not about data and numbers. It's not about and this is just truth and honesty here. It is not about ROAS. It's really about connecting with our merchants on a personal level, understanding their business, understanding the challenges that they're facing, and really going above and beyond to make sure that we can not just drive effective advertising campaigns and profitability, but that we can partner with them in a way that we can absorb enough of their business into our own strategies and goals to do more than just drive traffic and increase profitability, right? It's about knowing everything from their margins to what their audience is like, what they're doing on site, as we've talked about conversion rate optimization, what we can do to guide them or do better by them, right? But also finding partners and partner organizations that what we're great at. We're great at PPC, we're great at helping merchants list and advertise their products online, but we don't do this. We don't do hosting. We don't do customer loyalty. That's just not what we do. So being able to partner with other organizations like JetRails to better support the merchant throughout their entire experience, I mean, that is also pinnacle and crucial to our goal as an organization as well.
Yeah. Obviously, we have a lot in common there. That as web hosts, if the infrastructure, if the groundwork isn't operating well, if it's not fast and secure and scalable and reliable, and if it's not flexible enough to host what the client is trying to develop and create, these custom sites and such, these unique tailored sites, that nothing else is going to really matter.
That's right.
But at the same time, all those other things have to come together for us to to be able to do our jobs. And that's why we very much, in a very similar way, we believe that it's not just about clouds and servers and software tools. It's about people.
That's right.
That
It's about
we're there
people.
to understand what people's needs are, how we're going to help them grow, and how they're going to sleep well at night. And we've got a mission that has a lot more to do with working directly with merchants and solving their needs and being proactive about it, than it does about throwing hardware at problems.
That's
Um,
right.
so it sounds sounds very, very similar, and that's why we have these relationships with others, because we know that our clients need
That's right.
the right tech stack and providers to grow and thrive. That we can give them the infrastructure that they can do it with, but they really need to then be able to do those things. So before we wrap up, is there anything that?
Aw.
Oh, don't worry. We'll have an after party. It's okay.
You mean the iguanas, right?
Yeah. Hey. I have lost count of how many of those I've got here in Florida. Okay, this invasive species that just decided that they all wanted to move in. They're all over the backyard. Any final words of wisdom? Anything coming down the pike in the space? Anything we didn't touch on, that the same way that we somehow almost forgot to talk about tagging and tracking and
The middle. Good,
um,
great. We caught that at the right time, though. Yeah, I think the industry is evolving, and it is growing in a faster rate than it ever has. Right, COVID accelerated everything. 6-10 years in the future, you saw Toby Lukey from Shopify say this. You've seen Brent Baum over for BigCommerce saying a lot of this. You've seen Google saying this. You saw the changes that they're bringing, Google Marketing Live. I mean, if I had to really end with anything, it's really stay informed, right? Uh, it's hard, it's noisy, it's there's a lot going on out there, but the more informed you are and the more you stay on top of the changes, the better prepared you're going to be to support these changes, right? And if you have the right partners and you have the right people that you're working with to make those things happen, as long as you know, or you're trying to stay on top of the constantly changing environment and ecosystem, I think ultimately you're going to be ready for what's coming down the pipeline. We have a lot of exciting things coming down. We have a lot of big launches coming out soon. Stay tuned for Q4. We have some new features, some new integrations coming out. I'm excited for them, and ultimately, I'm excited to continue to help merchants and companies grow.
Awesome. Well, as always, a pleasure chatting with you, which we'll continue to do a little bit more off camera.
Stay tuned for episode 2.
Yeah, everyone in the episode description, I'm gonna anything that he says that's worth hearing after this, I'm gonna be sure to quote him directly on against his will.
Just put my cell phone right in there, and you just got a question, just call me. Right?
If anyone really does have questions, I will get you in touch with Tony. But as always, thank you for your time today.
Always.
And to our audience. Yeah, we appreciate you tuning in for this episode. We'll have more great content like this for you soon. And in the meantime, stay safe, stay healthy, and happy sailing out there.